Hey guys, welcome back. This is series 2 of our digital marketing podcast. We're calling this series Online Business Basics. With me, I've got Gary. He has over 12 years worth of experience, and we're going to be covering in this episode and the following episodes the 101 of business basics, not bakings. You don't want to be baking.
We're not baking today.
For those who are setting up a new business online. So stay tuned, guys. I know you're going to love this stuff. Gary, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, excited to be doing the podcast today.
Good. Me too, mate. It's been a little while. We've been busy. The whole AI chat GPT thing kind of
blowing up the world.
Yes, so we've integrated that now into our business. It's very exciting to see how that has helped us be able to get better results. We'll share a little bit about that, I'm sure, in the coming episodes. However, what we're going to be covering today, first off, though, I want to introduce you, Gary. I want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are. I'm sure anyone that's listening to this will already know who I am. My name is William Polson. I'm the founding manager of Australian Internet Advertising, which is the office here in St Leonards that we're doing this podcast from. Gary is an exciting, not so new anymore, member of the team.
I'm still young and vibrant.
12 years of experience plus. 10 years ago, you worked at Google for 2 years prior to that, didn't you?
2 and a bit years, yeah.
Right. And so then you left and have been doing Google ads and helping businesses grow online ever since.
Yeah, so my career's been pretty much predicated on small to medium-sized companies.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this today, because you and I discussed how every single day we'll take maybe 2 or 3 phone calls from people who are looking to set up a company, looking to go online, and they want to learn what pitfalls to avoid, so they call people like us. And this podcast is entirely designed to answer all of those questions, explain the ins and outs, the 101s, the basics of all the fundamentals of creating an online company. And hopefully at the end of the series, you'll have learned a lot from our experience about what to look for and what not to do.
It's tough starting a new business, right?
Yeah, especially if you have no idea about how the online sphere works.
And you've got to go online these days. There's no avoiding it. I mean, there's still... I spoke to a guy this morning at the dog park, and he's got a building company, never spent $1 on ads. You know, that old school kind of word of mouth and so on. They do happen. Those kind of little one-man or you know, small businesses can still kind of thrive locally with word of mouth, I suppose, and referrals if they're doing a good job. But... really, these days, I'd say, primarily, you need to be online. You need a website. You need website traffic.
Well, you just nailed it. That guy's got, 40 years experience in industry, and he survives on that.
Yes.
If you're setting up a company and you don't have 40 years industry experience and a whole network of people who can send work to you, you need to be online. You have no alternative. So today we're going to go through some of the most basics. And then we'll introduce the rest of the series and what we're going to be looking at and what we're talking about, so that hopefully at the end you are fully equipped to set up your business online.
Cool. So today I think we're running through a couple of really quick first up basics that you need to know, Gary. The first one is registering your business. I mean, this is going to be different for businesses in different regions and countries.
Yeah, different.
In Australia, obviously, it's ASIC. Check the availability of the business name. Make sure you get all of the kind of registrations in place before you begin.
But exactly. But the purpose of this podcast is not to tell you how to do the admin side of setting up a company, because it is going to be different wherever you are in the world. I'm from the UK, and it's different there than it is here. Here you need ABNs. In the UK, you don't. You need different things. So for those of you in America listening, or North America as well, it's just going to be different. So when it comes to that, talk to an accountant. That's always 101. Spoken to so many people over the years who've tried to set up a company, and they do it online. They do it with the top 10 guides, and they make mistakes, and it goes wrong.
Or they set up a company and they start to get some traction only to find out that someone already owns that name or has a trademark against that service or product or whatever it is, right? So,
case in point, being a sole trader in the UK is okay.
Yes.
But being a sole trader in Australia means that you have all liabilities for the company, and even if you close that company, you as an individual are still liable. Now, obviously, that's not legal advice, but I'm just saying it's different wherever you are in the world. If you are setting up the company and you are doing the administration, talk to an accountant in your space. They'll probably talk to you for free, and they'll give you some great advice.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Gary. So the first thing we're going to cover real quick, because we do get asked this a lot by people who are ringing us up talking about domain names and business names. What's in a name, right? Like why why would you choose a certain business name over another? I know that back in the Yellow Pages days, people would choose business names that started with A, or they'd even call it AAA Tree Services or AAA Accounting or whatever it was to make sure they're at the top of the list. That's obviously no longer a thing. There is exact match domains, which I know we're going to speak about real quick in regards to registering business names that match the service or the product that you're offering to try to get to the top of Google. What do you think about that, Gary?
Well, you've got two options when it comes to naming your company. I mean, you've got dozens of options, but you've got two real options to focus in on. You can establish a branded name, or you can establish what I would call a head term name. You just called an exact match name. So working with a very basic example, let's say someone is a photographer and they are based in the small regional town of Dubbo. When they name their company, they can call their company Photographer Dubbo, and then they would have the domain name Photographer Dubbo, or they could call it Jake's Fantastic Photography.com.au. There's an obvious difference between those two things, and in the same way the Aaron's tree lopping service that you just mentioned, they were trying to game the system. They were trying to appear at the first possible position in the tree lopping section of the phone book. Using a head term as your business name, as your company name, as your domain name, you're trying to game the system. So that if someone is looking for a photographer in Dubbo and your company is called photographerdubbo.com.au, you have a good chance of showing up. However, there might already be Photographer Dubbo.
Or you might want to grow out from Dubbo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your aspirations might be bigger than being a small regional photographer, or a cake maker in the eastern suburbs, or an electrician in New York, or a taxi driver in London. I mean,
it does depend on what suburb you're in, though. Like if you look at some skincare brands and other kind of other brands, if the suburb you're talking about or the suburb you're targeting is a world famous suburb, you can still branch out. Like I think there's Bondi Skincare. Something like that.
Bondi beach shorts. Bondi towels.
They're probably selling in Brazil. I mean, I don't know, but so there are exceptions to that rule. But generally, if you're registering a business under the name of a suburb or an area that you're targeting, you're going to find yourself a little bit limited, I think, if you grow past that down the track.
No, exactly. So to summarize the point that we're trying to make here, when naming your company, don't just come up with something that sounds fantastic to you. Try to think about how that name is going to play online, specifically how it's going to play in search engines. There are caveats to that. What happens in the future, 5 years down the line? Can you possibly outgrow the name? Absolutely. You and I have both worked with companies who've outgrown their name. But by that point, it's too well entrenched and it becomes difficult to change. There's a fantastic company called Sydney Tools, based here in Australia. They are Australia-wide. They have stores in every state, in every regional capital, but they're still called Sydney Tools because 30 years ago or whatever, they chose that name and now they stuck with it.
That's their brand.
And trust me, people in Melbourne don't love Sydney. And people in Brisbane don't love Sydney, but that's what they've got.
Their loss.
Exactly. So if you are out there and you are an electrician who works for your boss and you're thinking that it's about time you got out from underneath his shadow, her shadow, their shadow, or you have recently qualified as a baker or a photographer or an accountant or a lawyer or something like that, and you're thinking of setting up your shop, try to look at it with an honest perspective. Try to look at it from an honest perspective about what's going to get you the most work in, say, the first 12 months. And generally speaking, that's going to be what I would call a head term business name.
And
that would be Lawyer Strathfield, which is a suburb near where I live. And someone goes to Google, types in Lawyer Strathfield, you're going to appear, you're going to game the system.
You're more likely to appear. EMDs aren't what they used to be, exact match domains. You used to be guaranteed pretty much a top spot for the keyword. It still does help a lot, though. There's some examples of websites I can think of that are just popping back up into my memory now that very little SEO was done to, but they still came up at the top of the list. I kind of think it depends on how broad an area you're going for or how competitive it is. Like if
or the service.
Or the service, that's right. If it's a really, really, like if you register or somehow manage to register a name like Insurance Sydney or Car Insurance Sydney. .com.au, you're not necessarily going to come up for Car Insurance Sydney, right? Just because of the
not anymore.
But if you register roofing Manly or something like that, you're very likely to come up in the top few spots.
I should explain that Manly is a suburb in Sydney,
Yes.
not just a way to do roofing.
Yeah, or a way to describe me. I'm happy to be. By the way, just a side note, guys, if you don't like the word side note or caveat, you might want to tune out now because they're two of Gary's favourite words. He pulls them out often.
There are many caveats and there are many side notes.
Yes. Side note.
Yeah. Side note.
Yes.
There is a women's netball team in Manly.
Is there?
And they are the Manly women's netball team.
All right, so head terms versus brand name. What are some benefits to the brand name, though? I mean, there are ways of creating a brand name that are more memorable, less syllables.
Yep.
That can make people find it easier to remember you. You get that fluency in the market, right, where people hear the word, they hear the sound, and they think of you or your business straight away.
Yeah, and so you could go for a brand name like First Choice. Let's just pick one at random. First Choice Photography. That has a connotation to it that people see First Choice, they read best. And there's similar versions of that. There's expert, there's professional, there's any number of things.
Yeah, Priceline, Pay Less. There's a lot of examples of people who have used brand names to tell a story about what their business represents, I suppose, or the value proposition that they have to offer.
Yeah, they're trying to establish their position.
Yeah.
Even before they've really created the company.
Yes.
They're choosing a name that reflects who they want to be in the future, rather than who they're going to be in the first 6 to 12 months of actually running the company.
Yeah.
And that is an important decision to make.
Yes.
If you want to be a cake shop and you're trying to set yourself up selling birthday cakes to corporate entertainers, that's what I'm looking for here, Bill. Set me up.
Corporate entertainment for
entities. That's the word.
Entities,
corporate.
Right.
You're trying to sell cakes to corporate entities all throughout the CBD.
Yes.
You could go with CBD cakes.
Yes.
That would be the head term.
Yes.
Or you could go with
executive cakes, corporate cakes.
Exactly. Yeah. Corporate cakes, executive cakes is not related to the location.
Or you could get with the times and call it like Cakeify or Cakeable. Or something like that. There's a lot of them going around.
Air cake. That's where you sell other people's cakes.
Yeah. So how a brand name makes you stand out, I think that, we've kind of covered a little bit of that. It's an opportunity for your business to be memorable.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a fine balance, right? You've got to either go for the head terms or go for the sort of being more memorable or presenting the value propositions of your business. Or if you can kind of do a bit of both, that's a good thing too. But,
And have a look at the competition.
Yes.
You could be entering the space as an electrician.
Yep.
Like I said, the Jeff example, who's trying to get out from underneath his boss's shadow.
Yep.
Chances are he's not going to get a location-based head term because they're already going to be taken up.
Yes.
And have a look at the competition, see what they're doing, see if you can learn anything from that.
Yep.
Have a look at the established companies, the ones that have grown well over the past 5 years.
Yep.
If you are a cake shop, a photographer or whatever, you're in your industry.
Yes.
You know people who've done this. You know people who've set up on their own. You know the ones who have gone well.
Yep.
And the ones who folded. Have a look at the ones who've gone well, and if you can try to glean anything about from their approach.
Or look at the gaps too, right? Like you might have seen that there's a ongoing persistent problem that no one really has in the market been able to solve yet. If you can solve that problem, you can read through the reviews on competitors or competitors to be listings and find out what people are complaining about the most, what they're happy about the most, and kind of work with that as well. So there's a lot you can do.
I should just qualify for the listeners. When you say look for the gaps,
yes,
a gap means look for a name that's not currently covered that can encompass a service.
Yes, that's right.
So with the gaps, going back to my cake maker example,
yes,
there could be 20 companies in the Sydney CBD or the Vancouver CBD or wherever, all selling executive cakes. If none of them are really doing a strong gluten-free range, that is a gap. And you can become gluten-free CBD cakes. And you're never going to take up all the traffic in the world, or even in that city, but you will have a strong chance of taking up the gluten-free cake market, and that's spotting the gap. That's what Bill meant there.
We're kind of touching on something that I think we're going to look at really briefly in the points that are coming up. One of them is One of them is the competitor analysis, looking for the gaps and niching and not niching.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Yeah.
Because there are some pros and cons for doing both.
Yeah.
But it speaks a little bit to if anyone out there's read Seth Godin, This Is Marketing. You can't be everything to everyone.
No.
But you can be something to someone, right?
Yeah.
Or to some people. So that kind of works. So
it's like me. I'm nothing to everyone, and I'm something to my wife. I don't know what I am to her, but
well, hopefully she's something to you too, Gary.
I think I'm just a bloke who leaves the house 5 days a week.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so once we've done that, once you've sat down with a pen and paper, talked to your friends, partner, whatever, tried to figure out or establish the type of name you want.
Yes.
You don't just get to choose it,
yes.
right? So the next step is to go online and find out if that name is available.
Yes.
Because you might think of the best name in the world, and then go online and look for it and realize that it's already taken. So to do that, we need to check for domain names. So Bill?
You can check. There's online governmental sites, like in Australia, it's ASIC. You can search business name availability there.
Yep.
Overseas, I'm sure they would have something of the equivalent to that.
Yeah.
But then there's also obviously Crazy Domains, GoDaddy, TPP Wholesale. We have a site up where you can check for domain name availability.
Yeah, so you just need to go to Google, type in domain name checker.
Yeah.
If you're in Australia, domain name checker Australia. If you're in the UK, Germany, wherever, just append that search with your location.
Yep.
And then you'll be able to find out whether or not your domain's available.
Word of warning though, don't register more than one. Because it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I know people who've registered, like they've got $2,000 per year bills coming out for their 50 domain names that they've registered.
Yeah.
Or so, and they just keep paying them so no one else can have them, but they've done nothing with them.
Exactly.
Right?
If you are going to be Jake's photographer in Dubbo, realistically you only need 1, maybe 2 domain names. jakesphotography.com.au and jakesphotography.au, which is a relatively new type of domain name. Jake in Dubbo does not need to register a .com, a .org, a .net. None of that is required.
Yes.
Again, side notes and caveats. If you're going to be an e-commerce company and you want to... And e-commerce is a very different kettle of fish that Bill and I will talk about in more detail in coming episodes. But if you are going to be e-commerce and you do want to retail across borders, then you might need to pick a name that you can get domains in .coms and .co.uk's to establish that position. But building a company based on that premise it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, as my nanny used to say, because you are 10 years away from being able to launch into new markets. So don't let it control your entire business. Or if you've got the perfect name that's available in a .com, but it's not available in a .co.uk, and you're in America and you're not going to target the UK for a long time, don't let the unavailability of a .co.uk deter you from buying your favorite domain name.
Yes. Yep. Fantastic. And who can register it, and what types of suffix mean? So anyone can register a domain name, really. I mean, they do ask you to put in an ABN number, and they ask you to tick a box saying that the domain name's related to your business. Yeah. But they don't check. So people register domain names with all sorts of different names for one business quite often, right?
Yeah. There's, basically you've got to be practical. If I wanted to register 20thcenturyfox.com.au, but I wanted to spell it with a slightly different spelling, then I probably would be allowed to register that name. But 20th Century Fox would be allowed to, or 21st Century Fox would be well within their rights and legally allowed to come and say, no. That's ours. That pertains to us. You can't just say, I want Nike spelt with a C instead of a K. It has to be obviously relevant to the individual company.
Definitely. Yeah, there's court cases galore going on with the grey areas between, what some people think and what other people think. But
if you go back in time, there was a bit of a race in the late 90s, early noughties to start buying up domain names that people thought that they could make loads of money on.
Which some did. Yeah,
they did. And the reason I mentioned 20th Century Fox was because they had 20thcenturyfox.com. And even at the size of that company, no one thought to register 21thcenturyfox.com.
Yes.
And a bloke who did that was able to sell that domain to 20th Century Fox for a lot of money.
Yes.
Just because he got there first.
Yes, like real estate.
Yeah, but in today's legal landscape, again, not legal advice, but in today's legal landscape, that would not be permitted.
Yes.
The domain name would just be taken off him.
Yep.
They'd say that's not yours.
Yeah.
So, bear that in mind.
Yeah, cool.
And the suffixes, what do they mean? I mean, you can just Google this. .net means that it's supposedly for an online company. .org is for an organization, typically given over to a charity. .io is something that's growing rapidly. I don't know what IO actually stands for, but that is generally used by startups.
Yep.
.tv is a good example.
SaaS software startups, right?
Yeah.
.io, yep.
Yeah. .tv is a geographically related one. So you might see channel9.tv, and TV actually relates to Tuvalu, a small South Pacific island. .car is the Central African Republic. There's heaps of them out there.
There's more and more coming out. There's .Sydney now. There's there's a range of .info,
.hotel. Yeah. So pick the one that's right for you.
Cool. All right, we'll move on to the next stage, how to focus on what that company will do. This is a big one.
Yes.
This is a massive topic.
Probably should be an episode in its own right.
Yeah, for sure.
And we might come back to it and do, if you guys listening to this do want more information on how to focus what your company should do,
yes,
come back to us and talk to us.
Yep.
We have dealt with so many business owners, people setting up companies, couples, husbands, wives, groups of friends who band together. We've spoken to literally thousands of them over the years between us, and helped them figure out what the focus of their company should be in the beginning. Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of fundamental rules about it. I guess it's you're going to solve a problem for a group of people.
Yeah.
That's what a business does, a successful one anyway.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to focus on what your value proposition is going to be, what the dream outcome is going to be for your customers, and how you're going to be able to deliver that affordably.
Yep.
How you're going to be able to increase value by offering them assurance that they're going to get that dream outcome.
Yep.
With as little effort as possible and as quickly as possible. That's pretty much, Alex Hormozi's understanding of the value equation. It's probably the best one I've heard, and it explains why Valium is a $10 trillion a year industry and yoga is a fraction of that, because yoga takes time and effort, and it's less likely that you're going to get your dream outcome, which is, I don't know, serenity and peace. But Valium will offer you that immediately. There's just
no effort.
Unfortunate laws of physics which require for things that go up to come back down.
Biochemistry.
Yeah. But still, nonetheless, that's kind of a good example of that. So it's good to think about the value equation, the dream outcome, the likelihood of achieving the dream outcome versus the time and the effort equals value. People will pay more if it's going to take less time, take less effort, and give them what they want.
Yeah. And I would also add to that, because this podcast is designed to talk to people who are looking at setting up a company for the first time, who want to go online and they want to make money, and maybe they want to take their skill set and change their life, right? Be their own boss. It is often said that you need to find a gap in the market. I don't think that's true. In fact, I know that that's not true. You can, like with Bill and what Bill just said about being able to value prop your services correctly, there doesn't need to be a gap. If that was true, there would only be one plumber in the world. What you need to be able to do is offer value, offer services at a better turnaround or a better price, or you need to have something that makes you stand out, or something that's going to make your customers go with you rather than the others, rather than the competition.
And that's, another thing you can look at is having an identifiable market. So for plumbers, it's people with homes that have broken plumbing or need hot water upgraded or installed, right?
Yeah.
So it's an easily identifiable market. It's a market that you can get in touch with. It's a growing market, and it's a market that have the money for your services.
Yeah,
right? They're kind of the critical things that you need to do. And on that as well, for example, with the plumber, there's things that people are looking for, that we know people are looking for, and they stem back to the foundations of human behavioral psychology, right? Or marketing psychology, which is people are looking for something that other people are doing, generally, that other people have been happy with. Something that is trustworthy, credible, has that consensus, has that kind of hype about it. If people feel like everyone else is doing it, then they feel like they have to do it too. Something that is local for a plumber is critical. So if you are looking at entering a certain industry, look around and look at what the successful guys in that industry are putting front and center on their websites or in their marketing material. Look at their reviews again, and then you'll be able to see what it is that's actually making people tick and decide to take action. Don't hide the phone number in the footer. If you're looking to get phone calls, that's pretty critical. Make it easy for people to be able to contact you. All of these kinds of things are the things that will make a difference and move the needle when you're trying to generate business for yourself.
And a plumber's a great example as well, because let's say this, I don't know, his name's Frank. Frank the plumber, he's 29, he's been working for his boss for 8 years and he's fed up and wants to go out on his own. What's going to make Frank different to his boss, the one he's leaving? Well, his boss has an established company, an established brand, an established footprint. People already know his name, perhaps. They already have some awareness, and maybe they've even used Frank's boss before. But what Frank has is a much smaller company with much lower overheads. So Frank can go out there, as long as he's able to get traffic onto his website, we'll get onto that in other episodes, as long as he's able to get traffic to his website, Frank can actually charge less, but make the same amount of money per job as his boss would make. And obviously that's going to make the customer happy, because now they're getting the same quality of work, but they're paying less for it. So that's going to be a key standout point. It's the same for any business who's setting up. At the beginning, you will have very low overheads, very low. You don't have accountants, you don't have administrators, you maybe don't have a yard or a shop making cakes because you're still doing it from home. Whatever it is that you don't have, that the established businesses do, take advantage of the fact that that can reduce your operating costs and charge less. And don't be afraid of charging less.
Or charge the same and add more value, right, as well, is another way to do it. There's a pest control guy that I worked with for quite a while, and he made squillions out of the fact that he knew that most of the people that rang him were housewives while their husbands were at work.
Okay.
Times are changing. I get that. But this was just most of the people that rang him in this instance.
One second. It's the 1950s. Yeah. They're calling you.
Yeah, right. He offered on his landing page a free Westfield gift voucher, $50.
Okay.
And that worked because he understood who his market was. He understood something that they would value, which was something to give them an excuse to get out of the house and go shopping.
So you're saying that the housewives knew that the price was inflated by $50, but they could get the card.
They could get $50 of their husband's money.
That's
1950s.
Yeah.
But it worked for him.
Okay.
So the point is, try to understand who your target market is.
Yeah.
And come up with something that you know that they'll value and throw it in, or charge less. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But
so this is what we're talking about here. To summarize, is picking a niche versus not having a niche.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to go back to my photographer example. Let's say he is based in regional Australia in some town called Dubbo, which for those of you who've never heard of that, it's probably 40,000 people. It's not a big town. A photographer can obviously do multiple types of photography, which is why I'm picking this one back up. He could be a portrait photographer, or he could be a landscape photographer, or he could be a wedding photographer, obviously, you know. Now, if said photographer chooses to niche down, he might say, well, I'm Dubbo wedding photography, going back to the naming convention question. If he becomes Dubbo wedding photography, he will probably preclude anyone who goes onto Google and starts searching for portrait photography Dubbo. But that's fine if that's what he wants to do. If he wants to make money off the wedding seasons because he knows he can make good money from a wedding, much more probably than you can make from a day's worth of portrait photography.
The other thing about niching, which is a really interesting point that that surprised me when I learnt about it, was that if you were to an example of why niching can be valuable, aside from the obvious, I mean, if you target a specific niche, you've got a rinsable and a repeatable process. You become more of an expert in that field in a shorter period of time. You become more trustworthy. You can build more, relevancy in your reviews and your landing page and your advertising. So there's a lot of advantages, but there's another main one that a lot of people don't think about. But here's the example. If you can imagine a day planner, right, that people sell online. So a day planner, and it's worth $50. if that same day planner is targeted to medical professionals, now it's a day planner that's worth $150 for medical professionals.
But it's the same day planner.
Day planner, but it's marketed differently.
Okay.
So now it's a day planner for medical professionals worth $150. If it's a day planner for medical professionals between the ages of 30 to 40, it's now worth $250, right? So the more specifically relevant to your prospects' needs your solution is, the more valuable to them it is as well, right? So that's another reason why people niche. You can charge more for a more relevant, specifically relevant service or product for people.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, if anyone is unclear on how this works, just think about how much a textbook costs. Right. When I went through university, I could read the content of a textbook online, almost certainly for free, maybe with a small subscription to journals. As soon as you make that book into a hardback publication that is only sold through certain stores on university campus, the price of that book goes up to, university in the UK, would go up to £400 or £500 perhaps. You look at the medical textbooks, it's just a book, right? It's just paper and ink bound together.
Yes.
But Grey's Anatomy, even though it's been in publication for decades, is still an extremely expensive book to purchase.
Yes.
And that's because that book has niched down on provides a service to a very specific subsection of people, namely medical students.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
So I guess the argument is with niching you're trading in TAM, which is total addressable market, right? So as soon as you niche, your total addressable market turns into a fraction of what it was before.
Because if you're a photographer in Dubbo doing all types of photography, your total addressable market is
everyone
the whole of Dubbo
photography
in
right?
Dubbo.
Yes, that's right.
And if you niche down to wedding photography, you're now saying it's just people who need wedding photography.
But you can charge more for it.
You can charge more.
And you become better at it in a shorter period of time.
And you can get to a better position on search engines faster.
Right, exactly. So you know, it's really... There's no clear winner in this. It's up to you as an individual. It's up to your vision for your business, right? To what you want to do, I suppose.
We are talking, not exclusively, but we are heavily focusing on what we would call lead gen companies. A company which requires the phone to ring or an email to come in, an inquiry to be made, so that the business owner can close that inquiry and turn it into a customer. Lots of this logic, or most of this logic, still applies to e-commerce companies.
Certainly.
For those of you who are listening and are thinking about establishing an e-commerce company, perhaps you have worked in an e-commerce company for years and you now want to break out in the same way that the electrician wants to get out of his boss's shadow. Maybe you're looking and thinking, well, I know how to run this company. I can do this better for less. Maybe you're looking at buying $10,000 worth of bed sheets from China and you're going to set up bobsbedsheets.com.au, right? Picking a name, picking a niche, all of it still works.
Yes.
You know, you might choose to establish a generic bedsheet company, or you might choose to establish a company which sells children's bedsheets.
Or hypoallergenic bedsheets or something like that.
Or you might choose to sell, and this is how nerdy
satin
I am.
bedsheets.
This is how, you're going to love this.
Yeah.
I was recently looking at buying, because I've got a queen size bed, but I've got I tell stories and anecdotes, by the way, people. A queen size bed, but I have a Super King duvet, and purely to annoy my wife, I was recently looking at purchasing king size bed sheets with Doctor Who's TARDIS on the front of it, because I want to sleep in a Doctor Who bed, and my wife doesn't. Point is, the person who established a company selling nerdy bed sheets to adults would have niched down onto something very specific. But the moment I found that, I'd buy from them.
That's more than a normal bed sheet or a normal printed bed sheet, right?
Yeah, they can charge more.
Pattern.
Yeah,
right,
they can charge way more, and it'll cost the same to produce.
Think about the total addressable market, though. It's a fraction of what it was before.
Yeah,
what percentage of the Australian population are nerds, Gary?
Well, I think there's at least 7 of us. No, but let's say you take the same logic and you do it for a sports team.
Yes.
Right? You show an advert on social media, wherever, TV, billboards, whatever, and you put a king-size bedsheet together for Dallas Cowboy fans, and then you advertise that to all the men in Dallas. You're going to get some sales.
Yes.
You just are. There's a business idea. If anybody wants to take it, adult bedsheets for sports fans. lots of men will buy it just to annoy their wives because no wife wants to sleep in a bedsheet that says Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, there is a difference between lead gen and e-commerce, clearly.
Yeah.
There's also high ticket e-commerce, which kind of sits in between the two, because a lot of the campaigns generally are structured the same. I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole here. I'll pull myself up, but e-commerce businesses that sell things that are more than kind of $1,000 or and up will get phone calls as well as e-commerce sales.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I need to know if this high-powered engineering fan can be suited to my meat production factory.
Even something that's like a forklift. You will sell some forklifts online with credit card that are worth 30 grand.
Yep.
But you're probably mainly going to get phone calls from people who either want more than one, have some questions about the
delivery.
Warranty. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, if you have it in stock.
How long is it going to take to get it to me? I mean,
yep.
I buy a forklift online. Am I going to be waiting 6 months for it to be delivered, or 6 days?
Exactly. So there's e-com, there's lead gen, and then there's kind of a mix in between with high ticket e-com items where they generate leads as well. Yeah. What's next, Gary? Where are we up to next, mate?
So just as a caveat to this subsection, running a company, whether it's lead gen or e-com, it's all about dealing with people.
Yes.
And the honest truth is people are idiots. You know, if you're looking at setting up the cake shop, you might know everything about making cakes, but your clients know absolutely nothing. They don't know what they're buying. They're going to ring with stupid questions. And the reason we put this in here, the reason we chose to talk about this is because lots of the businesses that we've seen set up, they might be experts in their field, but they have no skills when it comes to dealing with the people. And you need to be good at that, and you need to learn how to get good at that quickly if you're going to make your business work.
Yeah, you've just brought up another whole kind of subtopic, I suppose, that I won't go down it too far, but if anyone out there's read the E-Myth.
Billy's read lots of books, by the way. I mean, I read fantasy, Doctor Who. He reads grown-up stuff.
Yeah. The E-Myth is just really quickly to summarize, generally speaking, people who become really good barbers. Let's say, for example, there's a guy who becomes a really good barber. He wants to start his own barbering business.
I'm going to tell you a joke in a second.
Yes, fantastic. I can't wait. I'm already laughing.
Okay.
A barbering business. So he thinks he needs to, he starts a business, and he thinks he needs to make this barbershop successful, or to make this chain of barbershops. He's got a vision, right?
Yep.
To make it successful, he needs to just do more barbering and do it better and do it faster.
Okay.
What a lot of people make the mistake of doing is thinking that to build a successful business, they need to keep doing what they've been doing to get them where they've got now. So for a plumber or an electrician, for example, if you want to leave and stop working under a boss and start your own plumbing business, you are no longer a plumber. It requires you to become an entrepreneur for you to be able to build that business successfully. So instead of only plumbing, you now need to understand HR. You now need to understand human beings and how to persuade people and how to get people to buy into your vision. You now need to know how to look at P&Ls. You now need to know how to manage cash flow. There's a whole range of other skill sets that you need to pick up if you're going to start your own business.
Yeah, and that comes back to what we said at the very top when it comes to registering your company. Speak to an accountant. Accountants are good at this, and I've spoken to so many people who think they can do this on their own.
Good accountants are good at it. Some accountants are shit.
Yes, they are. Billy Swore, everyone.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, so a good accountant, find maybe you've got a friend who already runs a company, ask them who they use. If their company's growing, the chances are they've got a good accountant on their side, someone who you can work with. They're going to give you the right advice, and it'll be beyond just accounting stuff. But they will have the expertise. They won't be able to help you close a sale, right? They'll never teach you that, right? But they will be able to teach you all of the other little things that you don't know. But my point was, running a company is about
like
dealing.
Tax is fun.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's the worst. Yeah. But yeah, so if you might be the best electrician in your town, right? You might know everything about electronics, but if you don't know how to talk to someone on the phone, you don't know how to take an inquiry, then that's something you need to learn.
You don't know how to emotionally deal with one of your workers telling you that they're sick and can't work that day, and to give them the space they need to be able to be sick. There's so much. it's a completely different kettle of fish, right?
Yeah.
For a
so,
business owner.
As an anecdote, one of my clients years ago, previous agency, we were running a campaign. I won't go into the specifics of the campaign or even the industry or the person, but we're running a campaign and the campaign was working. We were seeing good numbers, positive metrics. We had call recordings because that's just how we do things here. And
he was an asshole.
Yes. And he was telling us that everything was terrible.
Yep.
Right. And nothing was working.
Yep.
And we're saying, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't line up with what we're seeing here. So we listened to the call recordings and he's got an inquiry. I kind of have to tell you the industry. It was a security industry, night guards, stuff like that. And a bloke rang him up and said, okay, my night guard here in Australia, building sites have to be secured overnight, certain types of building site. My night guard can't work. I need someone tonight. Otherwise, I'm going to have to stand on the building site myself all night long. Right? Can you get me a guard? And this business owner said, oh, everything's on the website, go check. But the person was ringing up saying, no, but I
have an urgent problem. I'm willing to pay someone to solve.
Yeah, it's like 3 p.m. I need someone at 5 p.m. Can you get me a night guard?
Yeah.
Oh, no, just go check the website.
Yeah.
Right. And then the guy goes, oh, because he's desperate.
That's not as bad as my story, Gary. Yeah. And I won't take as long to tell it either.
Shut
up. We had a gentleman who was doing ads with us. He was a plumber. We were getting him about $80 leads from Google.
Okay.
We listened to a couple of the call recordings, and he said, okay, the call-out fee's $120, and then there's an $80 Google fee.
What?
And because we'd told him his leads are $80 each. So he started telling all of the people that rang him that they had to pay the call-out fee and the $80 Google fee for clicking on his ad. He wanted them to cover the cost of that.
Nuts.
It was brilliant.
So anyway,
yeah.
To summarize that, people are idiots. You're going to have to work with them. If you are an electrician and you've never had to deal with the public before or inquiries before, figure out how to get good at it. Talk to an accountant or good accountant. Get someone to refer an accountant to you and talk to them about the other side of dealing with people and running the business.
Yep.
And now, your joke. The oldest recorded joke in history.
Yes.
Comes from ancient Greece.
Yes.
A man walks into the barbers. You mentioned barbers. This is what reminded me. A man walks into the barbers and says, how would you like your hair cutting? The man says, in silence. Which is, I love that.
Yes.
Because I always get my hair cut in silence.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's an awkward thing, isn't it? I feel like I need to start a conversation with them.
I'm good with a, hi, how are you? Yeah, what are you doing today? I'm just on my lunch break. I'll leave it at that.
Generally, I feel like if someone's touching me, I should talk to them.
Okay.
It's kind of, I don't know what that is.
It's a
thing.
I don't sit and play on my phone.
Don't go too deep into that, though.
Yeah.
Leave that there.
I don't sit and play on my phone. I'm not one of those. I'm happy to just look in the mirror and watch them work.
Okay.
But I
do you ever get foot massages?
No, I had somebody when I was in Thailand. It freaked me right out.
I had a phase. All right, I haven't had one for a while, but they're good. Foot massages are good.
And you talk to them.
Well, I smile at them because I feel like I don't want to have someone massage my feet.
Ding, ding. That's the creep alert.
You know, I don't just grin the whole time.
I've got an image now of you getting a foot massage, creepily smiling at the person.
Thing where, like, you know, they look up to see, make sure that you're liking the foot massage.
Okay.
And I give them the smile and the nod of approval. I'm not one of those assholes that just sits there and like looks away like, massage my feet, you peasant. You know, that's horrible. Okay,
so if anybody's thinking about setting up a foot massage company and people start creepily smiling at you,
you'll know why.
Important lesson, deal with it. That's the industry you're in.
Cool. So I think with all of that done, we'll have to wrap this up, I reckon, Gary.
Okay.
With all of that done, you should be ready to start looking at getting a website. We will talk about this in the next episode.
Yeah, so we're just going to briefly run through what's coming up in the coming episodes. For those of you who may want to binge or follow on or keep learning about the ins and outs of setting up and running a company online. And hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions for you as we go. Yeah, so the next episode is going to be, I believe, competitor analysis, because you need to once you've got your name, once you've picked your niche, you're going to need to do some competitor analysis to make sure that your name and your niche are going to work. You don't want to pick your name and your niche and then find out that everyone else is already doing what you're trying to do. that's just going to be an uphill battle. We'll have a look at how to get a website and then how to get traffic on that website. We'll have broad strokes looks at how digital marketing works. We'll have a look at how to get traffic to your website, whether you want to go with Google, whether you want to go with Facebook, who you should pay, for how long, how much you should pay, what the expected deliverables of that traffic will be. We'll have a look at what the metrics mean, so that when people like us, marketing people, talk to you, you are armed and can understand what they're blabbering on about. We'll have a look at what else you may need, sort of out there ideas, other points. And we'll have a look at things for e-commerce, for dropshipping, for optimizations, and for general business growth. The idea of this podcast is that once you get to the end of it, you should be in a decent position, not perfect, you'll still have a long road to go, but you'll be in a decent position. You'll have been armed with lots of information from 2 experts who have gone through this process hundreds of times and helped companies go through this process hundreds of times, so that you can hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that businesses often make.
If you're starting a business, you're taking on a challenge that is going to be difficult. There is no way around that. There's a few unicorns. Everyone hears about them, and sometimes they do occur. But in most instances, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be challenges. You're going to not know who to trust. You're going to not know where to spend your money. You're going to not know. There's going to be a lot of unknowns coming up. So let
me summarize, actually, because it occurred to me. I think it's like 85% of businesses that are set up fail within the first year. We're going to tell you what the 15% who don't fail do.
Yes.
That's what we're going to teach. That's what we are going to teach you over the coming episodes.
We've seen it. We see it every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Cool. And catch us later, guys. Bye.
See ya.